Yo, yo, what's good? Alright, I just wanted to record kind of a quick video talking about Kled buffs that are going to be coming out next patch, 15.15. So yeah, I just want to talk about the Kled buffs real quick, and then just say a little bit about Kled in general right now that the changes have been out for like about a week, right? They came out last Wednesday, so it's been a little over a week now since the Kled changes have come out. And, you know, by now, most people have pretty much agreed that, like, Kled's kind of bad right now, which I definitely agree with. He is definitely pretty bad. You know, overall, I like the changes. He feels a lot better to play, you know, with the bug fixes and stuff. And I like the direction that they're going in, but he is definitely a little weak, which I feel like makes sense, you know. They definitely were, like, being really careful, it felt like, with the changes. Like, they just want to make sure there was no way you could possibly be broken. Like, you know, they were toning a lot of things down. I guess they were like, you know, let's fix it later rather than he comes out OP and they have to worry about that. Which makes sense. And also it kind of makes sense with how the other reworks turned out kind of recently with Yorick and Nefiri, where they got reworked and then they ended up nerfing them like a million times in a row because they just seemed to be too strong, according to most people. So I guess they don't want that to happen again. You know, Kled's like a really unpopular champion. He always has been, kinda. So it's not that surprising to me. So yeah, right now Kled's pretty weak, and in my opinion, his biggest issues right now are his dismount resist are like way too low on live. They were like too low on the PBE, and that just like came out. I think most people, it's really obvious that his resists are just way too low dismounted. I mean, I've been saying, like, on stream this past week, like, they need to, like, double the resist on his passive for it to be relevant. You know, especially because they were talking about how they want it to be more of, like, an early mid-game thing that's noticeable, and, like, late game, it's kind of whatever. Because, you know, late game, everyone has, like, true damage, essentially. You know, LDR's got 40% armor pen on, you know, AD champs, Sorelda's 35%, and then Void Staff's, like, 40% magic pen, so basically everyone just does true damage late game anyway. So this is more of like an early mid game thing. And it's also there to help like offset the fact that Kled gets countered so hard by max HP damage. You know, most people know that even if you're dismounted and your HP is capped out at dismount Kled's health, you'll still take max HP damage from your total HP, from Kled and Skarl's health bars added up together. So max HP, like missing HP type stuff, always shits on Kled. So having armor and MR when you're dismounted, I think is like a good way to offset that. But yeah, it's just too low on live, basically. So the buff it's actually a pretty big buff, I think. This is a pretty notable buff. His dismount resist is increasing from, right now, it's just 1% of your bonus health up to 2% of your bonus health, depending on how many enemies are around you. So it's 1% of your bonus health if there's no enemies, and then it goes up 0.2% of your bonus HP for every nearby enemy. That's how it works on live. So it doubles at 5, you know, nearby enemies in a team fight. So it's going from that to it's not going to be 1% to 2.5%. So a 0.5% increase if there's 5 enemies, but it now has a base amount added to the scaling. Now, right now, it has no base amount of resist at all. It just has the scaling. It's going to get 4 to 10 base armor and MR on the passive, so while you're dismounted. And that's also going to scale with enemies. So basically, if you're next to no enemies, it's 1% of your bonus HP plus 4 armor and MR. And then it goes up 1.2 for every nearby enemy. So if you're in a 1v1, it'll be 5.2 armor MR. Plus 1.3% of your HP, and then up to 10. So this is a pretty big buff. Now, obviously, there's like a bunch of fucking numbers, so like, I understand why this might not sound like anything, or it might just be kind of confusing. So, you know, I did just quickly take like some screenshots of like common scenarios just to give you like a rough idea of what kind of difference it'll make. And like I said, this is a pretty big difference. So, you know, right now, this is on live servers, this screenshot. If you're on live right now, and you just have a Dorn Blade, you literally have nothing, you know, you're just in lane level 4, and you have a Dorn Blade, and I have the Scaling Hell Shard rune here, which you know, is pretty much what you should take every game, scaling HP shard. So at level 4, it's 40 HP from the rune, and I have a Dorn Blade, so I have 120 bonus health. You know, I don't have Grasp or anything like that. So with this amount, this is like a common time you'd go in as Kled level 4. It would be giving you 1 armor and MR. That's how much you're getting on live right now, 1 in lane. So this is essentially nothing, right? It's not literally nothing, but it might as well be nothing to get 1. So next patch, I went on the PB and tested the exact same start, right? Dorn Blade, scaling health, nothing else. And in a 1v1 level 4, you would be getting 7. So yeah, you're going from 1 armored MR to 7 armored MR, which is a pretty big difference. I mean, you can even see here, it says 32% reduced physical damage at 48 total armor, and here it'd be 35%, so a 3% damage reduction increase. So that's pretty big, you know. I mean, for example, they like nerfed Brahms armor by like 7 recently. Like, I felt like that was a huge nerf. I feel like a lot of people, if you see like a champion getting buffed or nerfed by 7 resist, like that sounds like such a big change. Obviously, this is only when you're dismounted, but I think that's a pretty big difference. And then here's like kind of similar, level 6, 1v2. This is on live servers. Right now, you'd be getting 2 armor MR, again, with nothing besides a Dorn Blade. Next patch, you'd be getting 9. So again, a 7, this would be a 7 increase. Instead of 2 resist, you're getting 9. That's pretty good. And then in a 1v3, let's say you're level 13, this is like mid-game when team fight stuff starts happening. To me, this is a pretty common build at 3 items. 3 items is like usually Kled's like power spike, like 3-4 items mid-game is usually when you are like actually wanting to make plays and try to like impact the game as much as possible, is like around mid-game. Excuse me, as Kled. So this is on live servers right now with Hullbreaker, Titanic, Scaling Health Shard. I still go Hubris, right? I still think it's his best item. So it's just 2 HP items, you'd be getting 20 armor MR, which is like, you know, again, that's okay. That's okay, but you have no health. This is when you're dismounted, so you have no HP. So you need a lot more than 20. So on the PB, you'd be getting 31. So 11 more armor and MR. So yeah, I think this is pretty big. I think this is a pretty big difference. And then as you can see here, this is a team fight scenario. You can only put 4 dummies on the practice, so I couldn't put 5, but this is on live servers. You'd be getting 40 armor MR about full build. Again, this is like a pretty common full build for me, so only 3 HP items. And on PB, getting 56. Now, as you can see, like late game, this is essentially meaningless of a buff, right? Like, even though like 18 more armor and MR is like pretty big, you know, late game, like I said, everyone does like true damage at that point. So this is way more of like an early game impact thing. Like having 6-7 more armor and MR early game, that's where you're really gonna feel a difference, which I feel like is more in line with what they were originally, you know, proposing with the changes, where it's supposed to be more of an early mid-game thing. So yeah, I think it's a pretty big buff. I definitely think this is like, I think this is perfect for his dismount resist. I think this is what the, you know, this is what it should have started at, really. But like I said, you know, I guess they were just really wanting to make sure that he was like not too strong, and they could just fix it later, which is like whatever, you know, that's fine. I think this is pretty good, and this is pretty fast. You know, like I said, the changes have only been out for like 1 week, so you know, 1 week later they're like, all right, buff the resist, and it's a pretty good buff. Oh yeah, here, right here, Alistar is getting nerfed by 7 armor, right? Like a lot of people are saying, what is this Alistar? Huge nerf. I mean, I think that's a huge nerf, 7 base armor. And yeah, the Kled buff, you're gonna be getting like 6-7 more armor, and MR, like all throughout dismounted during laning phase. So I think it's a pretty big deal. I definitely think that's a big buff. The thing is, excuse me, yeah, burp. Thing is, he definitely will need another buff after this. His biggest problems right now, besides the dismount resist, I think this solves a dismount resist issue. I think this is pretty good. I'm assuming they wouldn't have to buff it anymore after this. I could be wrong, but I think this is like pretty good for his dismount resist. So after this, I think the main things that they should focus on if he does get any more buffs, which I think he'll need more buffs after this. A lot of people are saying he needs damage, like he's doing no damage right now. I think the biggest culprit of that is his dismounted Q. I think he really needs a buff. Personally, I actually feel like I'm pretty strong mounted. You know, and these are the kind of builds I've been going, which is pretty much in line with like what I was, you know, already recommending and like thinking was going to be good before it went live. You know, this is like, you know, this is obviously I'm like smurfing. This is like D2. This is like a mid-high diamond. So obviously this is like kind of lowy low, but these are the builds I've been going, and I've still felt like pretty strong. And I could carry with the, you know, Hubris LDR. You know, sometimes I'll try Cleaver, but LDR usually is better. But yeah, you know, I even go Yomu sometimes still. I think just going like a mix of AD pen items with bruiser items is like definitely the best way to go. You know, I've seen a lot of people say like, oh, I'm just forced to go full bruiser. Like that's what Raya wants. So I'm going to go only HP items. I mean, you can just like not do that. Like, I mean, I feel like that's making it worse on people too. Like I said, I definitely think Kled is weak. But if you're like, oh, I'm rushing Titanic, and then I go Hull, and then I go, you know, Sundered, and then I go Cleaver, you know, and I'm not doing any damage. Like, what is this? Like, I mean, I don't know what you expect if you're building no damage, right? Like, you have to build damage to deal damage. You know, at the end of the day, Kled is still a champion with like all of his moves scale off of AD, and all of his moves except for his W scale really high off of AD. And he's all physical damage. You know, his ult does magic damage, but when you're fighting someone, you're essentially all physical damage. So you still want a lot of AD and pen, and the scaling changes with his passive and W, especially with his passive, are mainly there, I feel like, to make it so you're not punished for building health. You know, you're not just gutting your damage and being squishy for building health. That's how Kled has been for the past few years. If you try to opt into health like bruisery items, you're not only losing so much damage, but you're literally making yourself die faster. That's how Kled has been, due to his weakness to percent HP damage. So, you know, the HP scaling on his W damage and the HP scaling on his passive resist are basically there to make it so you're not just ruining your entire champ by building bruiser items. Because, like, in theory, Kled would want Hullbreaker, Titanic, because of their passes and actives and, you know, stuff like that. And max HP scaling, which obviously synergizes with. So, I think you just have to, like, try to build more for, like, what he would actually want, and not just, like, what you think maybe Raya wants you to build. And, you know, and like I said, I do think he's weak right now, but I do think people are making it worse on themselves by building and, like, taking runes and stuff that just aren't very useful. You know, I still think Resolve is good, but I have been going Sorcery a lot, too. I think both are good. You know, of course, I go Haste Gathering in Sorcery, and then if I go Resolve, it's usually Demolish plus something else. You know, second win against Poke Champs is good against Quinn, and the next patch Unflinching will be even better. It's gonna add Overgrowth. Overgrowth is okay, but I don't know, something about Overgrowth I feel like is a little underwhelming to me. I don't know what it is, but I've taken a bunch of games and I can't seem to get more than like 200, maybe 300 health in like 30-minute game, like where I'm like fed as fuck, which doesn't really sound like a lot. I don't know. It's like 2 ruby crystals, like late game. I don't know. It hasn't really been doing a lot for me compared to just like straight AD and haste, especially because you're getting a little bit less haste if you're building like Hubris Hullbreaker next into Titanic LDR. There's not a lot of haste in that set of items. You know, I've also been going Lucidity Boots a little bit more often for the same reason, but yeah. But like I said, I still do think he needs a damage buff, but I think mounted I feel pretty strong, but his dismount Q I think is like pathetic. Like, I think that move is in desperate need of a buff. If they were gonna buff any of his damage, I personally think that's the first thing that they should buff. Like I said, I honestly feel pretty strong outside of his dismounted Q, and outside of him being too squishy dismounted, which I feel like is pretty helped by this buff. But yeah, the dismount Q, as you can see, this move has like a joke of like a base damage. This is max damage, so this is if you hit every single bullet. It does 60 to 170 for like an ability. And obviously you have 2 charges with like the 3-second delay between them, but I still feel like this is too low. And it has over 100% bonus AD scaling, which is pretty good. They did nerf it by like what, 20%, I think. Yeah, it lost 15% of its bonus AD scaling. Now the thing with this move is that it's always been a pretty bad move in terms of damage. Like I feel like it's always been a weak move, but it was like kind of offset by the fact that Kled would just stack pen. So he was doing like true damage to people because you were building like 60-70 lethality, you know, with a percent pen item every game for the past few years. That was like his best build. So I feel like that kind of mitigated the fact that the move was really weak. But now that he's not stacking as much pen and AD, and that they nerfed the scaling, I think it's just too bad. Like I think this move is like very embarrassing. So I think they should either restore some of the scaling. Probably would be a better idea is to just buff the base damage because the base damage is so low. And also I think it would make more sense with their like ideology, right? Like he doesn't need to stack full AD to be relevant. So yeah, I think probably a base damage buff, you know, maybe they could give it some health scaling. Because I don't know if it's just me, but I do feel like it's a little weird that he only has 1 damage move that scales off health. I feel like it's kind of weird because everything else is like such a big incentive to just build AD, right? Like his Q is still 180% bonus AD, right? And then his E is 100 and this is outdated. It's actually 120 or 110. It's definitely not 130 anymore. I think it's 120. This wiki is a little outdated, but yeah, it's 110. You have both parts. So yeah, like he for the most part he still has a lot of AD scaling. So it's like the rest of your kit still wants you to build heavy AD. It's just the only the W has a lot of health scaling, which I think is a little weird, but yeah. So yeah, I think they should need to buff the dismount Q damage. This resist buff is really good. And then outside of that, I mean, he really needs takedown courage. Like I know that they seem to be you know, really like hesitant on adding that back, but I truly don't think the champion even works without takedown courage. You know, I think a lot of people have been like saying the same thing, that he feels really bad without takedown courage. You know, not only is it like the most thematically appropriate thing in his kit, you know, that's the entire character, right? Is that Scarl runs away because she's scared of the fight. She watches Kled fight from like the bush. Kled starts to turn the fight, so like that inspires her to come back. So like I say, that's the whole point of the courage mechanic, which is like why you get the most from hitting champions, more than like hitting a tower or a camp. Hitting a champion is what's going to inspire Scarl to come back the most. I feel like killing a champion should be the biggest source of courage. Like it just makes the most sense character-wise. Obviously character-wise not that important when it comes to balance, but I also think Kled needs it to be even like functional. For example, like, I mean, a lot of you guys probably heard me talk about this already, but his dismount Q, you know, it gives you 5 courage per bullet that you hit on the champion. And it shoots 5 bullets, so you get 25 courage if you get a full Q. But the problem with this move is that if you kill somebody with your dismount Q, and you didn't need 5 bullets to kill them, because maybe they were just 1 health, like there's a lot of times where you barely pick somebody off with the Q, or you Q flash somebody who's 1 health, and maybe only 1 or 2 of the bullets end up actually killing them, because they were just that low HP, so the rest of the bullets will just fly past, because the guy already died. If that happens, you will only get the courage for the bullets that killed them. So even if somebody's point blank on you and you shoot them with the gun, but if they were low enough to just die to 1 or 2 bullets, you will only get 5 or 10 courage total for killing a champ, which I think is dumb, right? Because an auto attack that killed them would have given you 15. So right now I feel like you're actively punished for killing somebody with anything that's not an auto attack, which is not hard to happen. Like obviously you only have your autos and your Q, but now that you're building more like HP, like you're incentivized to build some HP, I've had plenty of kills with my Titanic, like the AoE, like the active actually does a lot of damage with the max health scaling and you know, with Kled's max health. So I've had a bunch of scenarios where I kill somebody with my Titanic AoE, I kill them with my dismount Q. You know, extremely common scenarios, you hit the bear trap while you're mounted, you dismount, and then your bear trap's still on them, of course, and that kills them. Again, you know, these things don't give you any courage. That's the problem, is if you kill someone with anything that's not an auto attack, it feels like you made a mistake. Like, it feels like you did something wrong for doing that, because you won't get any courage, or you'll get way less courage in the case of the Q. So I definitely think that needs to be changed. And this is like without even counting the fact that if you're in any kind of team fight scenario, if your teammate just kills a guy you were hitting, you don't get anything. You know, before you got if you damage them within 3 seconds, you still got the takedown courage. So you were not, you know, punished for your teammate killing them. You know, again, with the bruiser focus changes, it feels like they want you to team fight more. But if you're team fighting, it's like, how are you going to remount? Like, the guy you're hitting could just blow up from like your teammate's ultimate or something. And you're kind of just like doomed. You're just like there with no courage. You can't hit anyone. You have to try to like run up to the next guy. So yeah, I definitely think that it was like a mistake to take out the takedown courage. So I think those are his biggest problems. His 3 biggest problems. His dismount resist is too low. I think this buff, in my opinion, solves it. This is a really, really good buff. And I'm definitely like looking forward to playing with this. This is like a massive buff, I think, to his passive. I think that solves that problem. I do think he needs a little bit of damage. I do think people are exaggerating how little damage he does. And like I said, I think that's because people are still building like a little suboptimally, which, you know, makes sense because it's only been 1 week. And, you know, the changes haven't been in the game that long. Again, I think like a mix of damage and bruiser items is what you should be doing. This is like what every other bruiser does. If you look at Riven, Aatrox, and Bessa, right? Like, they usually build... You know, nobody is building full bruiser. Like, these people usually go a couple full damage items into bruiser items. You know, this is like D2 MMR, and they're going like lethality stuff. But, you know, if you look at any Riven Aatrox, they're still going Cyrildas most of the time. Cyrildas, Eclipse, which are full damage items. They just mix that in with their Sundered Sky and Sterix and whatever, Distance. There's not that many champs that just go like 5-6 bruiser items and are somewhat relevant, like besides like Set, who obviously is extremely incentivized to build health, more so than other champs. But I do think he still does need a damage buff, but I would put it on his dismount Q personally. I think that's his weakest move right now. I could see them buffing like something else, like mounted E damage is pretty weak too. That would be the next thing I would do if it was up to me. You know, again, these numbers are outdated here, but yeah. And then the third thing is the takedown courage, which is probably the biggest thing. It's not probably the biggest, it is the biggest thing. By far, it's his biggest nerf that he got. So yeah, I hopefully they will look more into what's like his problems right now. I'm pretty sure he's still like negative win rate, you know, which is like usually they look at numbers like that a lot. Yeah, he's like 49% win rate, Emerald Plus. This is what, global? You know, his pick rate went down already a bunch too. He was like 1.5% pick rate for a while. It spiked to like 4 or 5%. Yeah, with the original patch of the changes 1 week ago. And he's already all the way back down to like 3. So still double his pick rate, like what it's been for the rest of the season. But yeah, as you can see, his win rate's still pretty bad. Usually he's over 50% win rate because he was like only played by 1-tricks. So usually they could carry his win rate. And, you know, obviously Hyla is like a low sample size, but as you can see, like, his win rate's pretty bad, like everywhere. Everywhere he's negative win rate. You know, maybe like an Iron. Not even an Iron. I mean, Kled's never been like a low elo stomping champ or something like Yorick or whatever. But yeah, as you can see, his win rate's pretty bad. So I think this is a good buff, but number one, I don't think it'll be enough. I do think he needs a couple other things. And number two, like I should have said this earlier, but like a big problem with this kind of buff, even though I think this is a great buff, is that it reads as nothing. Like, I think most people will look at this and think this just doesn't matter, which is definitely not true. Like, this definitely does matter a lot, but most people can't really visualize. Like, if you're playing League, you're probably not really thinking that much about your base, like, stats, you know, your base armor, MR, stuff like that. So it's kind of hard to like feel that in the moment compared to like a move just doing more damage or something, or you know, giving you more speed or whatever. Like that kind of stuff is like more visually noticeable than taking like 3% less damage. So you know, like I said, even though I think this is a good buff, like I think I'm assuming this is not going to affect his win rate very much. I could be wrong, but I'm assuming most people are still gonna like lose on this champ a bunch, and they're still gonna like focus on like how they're not doing that much damage. So I'm expecting he's gonna need more buffs after this. But yeah, like I think this is a very like simple. I think this is very easy to fix. Like I think the changes have been really positive and made him feel way better to play. Like I played way more League and like Kled in these past like 1 week since the patch as I usually do. Like I played way more because I've been having a lot of fun playing him. He's just a lot more enjoyable for me to play without being so buggy and like feeling so outdated, and having more build diversity has been really enjoyable to me. I think if they just like go through with this buff and then buff his damage somewhere. Again, I think dismount Q should be the primary focus. And then give him some takedown courage back. I'll settle for 10 or 15 if they don't want to do 20. It used to be 20 takedown courage. I'll settle for less. I like even 10, which is half of that, you know, which would still be a big nerf from 20. Like I'll take 10, 15, I think makes the most sense because auto attack's 15. I think 15 is the ideal number, but I'll even take 10. I think if they do those two things, personally, I will feel like it is perfect and like done. The Kled changes, like I feel like they'll be done right there, and I'll be happy if they don't touch them after that. If all three of those things happened. So, you know, we already got one, so if the other two things happened, I think it will be perfect. And at that point, he'll just be like, I think he'll be pretty, like, you know, pretty generally useful champ for like mains. I still think he's gonna be like a main focused champion. But yeah, I think 15 courage makes the most sense because that way, if you do get a dismount Q kill, for example, and you only end up hitting 1 or 2 bullets, that's still like 20, 25 courage, which would be close to hitting the full Q. So I feel like that offsets that issue. And even if you do hit a full Q and kill them with 15 takedown, that would be 40 courage. I feel like that's fair. 40, like that's still not even half of your 100 courage to remount. You'd still have to auto. If you auto 4 times, yeah, then you'd be at 100. I feel like that's fair. 4 autos, a full Q that kills the champ, that remounts you. I think that's reasonable, personally. So I think like, yeah, 10, 15 courage makes the most sense. I think it solves everything. You know, I didn't mention the dismount Q thing to end step. Riot and stuff about how you know, he doesn't work on the balance team or anything, so it wouldn't be up to him. But I mentioned that if you get a kill with your dismount Q that only hits like 1 or 2 bullets, you get like no courage. And he was saying like, oh, maybe they could fix that by making, you know, some kind of thing where it checks to see if the bullets would hit, and then that would give you courage. Like I just feel like it's like not necessary. Like I said, I know that they're like hesitant to like add back the takedown courage, but I feel like it just solves so many problems with Kled. I really think the champion needs it to function in the game. Like, you are pretty much disincentivized to ever team fight if you're not going to get takedown courage. You know, why would you team fight? It doesn't really make sense. You know, you're a little disincentivized to dive people if you're not getting takedown courage, because diving becomes a lot harder without knowing that you could get takedown courage and remount, live the tower. You know, especially when you're diving with your jungler, which has always been a really, like, crucial thing about Kled, is his early dive potential with a teammate, because you could switch tower aggro. So, yeah, I hopefully they, like, change their mind on that. Not sure how likely it is, but hopefully they do, and then hopefully they give him a little bit more damage, and then I think it'll be, like, perfect. So, yeah, that's pretty much all I have to say. I am really looking forward to this buff. Pretty good buff. The rest of the patch is not really, is like whatever. I don't really care about the rest. I don't really care about the Kled changes, to be honest. There's nothing else to really say here. I mean, Alawi's getting like a mini set of changes too, and Rek'Sai. And both of those champions are like dog shit bad, so they do need changes. I'm not really sure what they do for them. I used to play Alawi a lot. I think these sound like good changes on paper. I'm sure there's going to be more besides that. Rek'Sai I don't know much about. I just know that she's useless. And these changes don't even sound that good, but maybe this is good. I don't know. But yeah, that's pretty much all I got to say about Kled. So yeah, I'm looking forward to this patch. Hopefully, like the patch after this one, there'll be some more stuff for Kled. But yeah, we'll see. But yeah, let me know what you guys think. And let me know if you guys like agree with what I think they should do with Kled, with bringing back Takedown Courage even partially, and a dismount Q buff. I think those are the best places to focus on. I really don't think he needs that much help mounted, to be honest. I think his mounted Q and W feel pretty good in terms of damage. Yeah, they could buff his E, but yeah, that's what I think. So yeah, thank you guys for watching, and have a good rest of your day. Yeah, peace.